All right, what's going on, everybody? Broken Games HDR back at it again with another video. So, when the season one episodes of Last of Us premiered, I did a review recap of all those episodes. So, I'm continuing that. Last of Us season two has started. The first episode came out last night. So, let's talk about it. All right. So this episode starts out with Abby and her group of friends who are also Fireflies, Manny, Mel, Nora, Owen, at a gravesite, which we assume is the gravesite of her father and a bunch of other Fireflies that Joel killed at the hospital. And I noticed like the contrast of the giraffes where Abby was looking at these giraffes, and it was like a very sad moment, versus when Ellie looked at the giraffes last season, and that was like a very happy moment for her. So they're showing you the two different, the parallels right there. So yeah, Abby is very mad. Owen knows about the WLF. He mentions this group in Seattle, and he wants to to join them. So I think it's good that we get a little bit more context and conversation about how them as former Fireflies join the WLF, because we understand that from the game, but the conversation, this same conversation with them, really isn't there. So, and just the sequencing of the show, we knew it wasn't gonna mimic the exact same sequencing of how we experienced the game. I like the sequence of the storytelling in the game. Some people have an issue with it. I really like it. I'm also fine with this very linear way of telling the story for season 2, which is part of part 2. Abby expresses that she's gonna find Joel, and when she finds him, she's gonna kill him very, very slowly, which indicates she is very angry and very revenge driven. And she is. Listen, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I can't wait for it because see, I don't think it's gonna hit as good on the show as it does in the game. I think the game is probably gonna end up being more gruesome, honestly. I don't see it being that gruesome in the show, but we'll see how it's directed and how it actually turns out. So there's a 5-year time jump from that moment, where we get to Ellie sparring with a grown man that's probably 6'2" and probably got like 100 pounds on her, and she puts him in like some MMA move. I'm not like familiar with all the correct MMA moves, the correct names of them, but it was like this leg. She has her legs around his neck, and like has his arm. I think that's an arm bar or some shit, and then she gets him to the ground and makes him tap. Like, yeah, that's not very convincing at all. We don't believe that for a second that this 100 pound 5'6" girl is taking down this 6'2", maybe 170 pound dude that looks like he's mostly muscle. Yeah, we're not buying it, big dog. Um, but they have to, this scene is just to make Ellie look like she is capable of taking on somebody 1v1, because she's gonna that's gonna need to happen, probably out in their adventures, once we get further in the show. But none of us are convinced. Um, Bella Ramsey just doesn't have the look. This is supposed to be a more mature and older looking Ellie. She doesn't look like that. She still looks young as hell. Uh and she's supposed to look just more capable. Like she's able of handling herself in some fights at least. Yeah, none of it is working. But we've already accepted that. I'm not going to linger on it. Let's move on. Jesse comes in and stops the fight. They have a little conversation and all that good stuff, talk about the patrol and some things. Um, so we see that Jackson is a functioning community. Everybody is working and contributing, um, and somehow trying to make the society as normal as possible. And the camera um zooms in on some pipes. I think Dina was actually looking at these pipes, and they have some roots in them, and they look to be dead. But I'm like, they're not showing that for nothing. One thing I've learned about like good directing, good writing, and films and movies and things like that and shows is anything you show the audience has to mean something. It can't just be for nothing. Everything is supposed to have like a payoff or a reason why you showed it later on. And I'm like, yeah, that's gonna there's a reason why they're showing us that, and I'll obviously get to that later because it's revealed at the end of the episode. Dina and Joel talk about their relationship with Ellie, the fact that Joel is getting therapy and a few other things. And, I guess, listen, you're in a post apocalyptic world where society has fallen and the world is full of infected and monsters. Yeah, that would be the prime time that somebody might need some therapy, especially with the shit that Joel has went through last season where he was like having panic attacks and shit like that. So I guess it makes sense. And Joel like teaches Dina about like circuitry, which I feel like there's going to be another payoff much later where Dina may need to like do something with circuits while she's off on an adventure with just her and Ellie. I'm sure there's going to be some type of payoff for that. And Dina's relationship with Joel is, obviously better than his relationship with Ellie right now because Ellie is obviously mad that Joel lied to her. And Dina and Joel obviously don't have no beef, and Dina doesn't know why Ellie is mad at Joel. So their relationship seems, just fun and cool. Another like father, not fully father daughter, but something to that effect. Then we then go to a scene straight out of the game, where Tommy is teaching Ellie how to snipe, and I really like this part of the game just as a story and gameplay element. I think it's just a really nice part of the game. Just him, just bring Ellie under his tutelage and just teaching her how to shoot a sniper rifle. So it's really cool. Um, Ellie talks to Tommy about how she's an adult, which not convincing at all. I'm sorry, you're not convincing us at all. In in the game, Ellie never needs to convince anybody that she's an adult. She looks like a young adult. And I feel like because Bella Ramsey listen, I said I wasn't gonna linger on it. Y'all know what it is. I'll move on. Um, but she doesn't like that everybody kind of like Joel especially overprotects her and like everybody respects Joel in that town. Tommy, who's like I guess I don't know what you consider him, the mayor. He's in charge of the town. Even he is like, listen, Joel said, so everybody respects Joel and like just respects his authority, um, and protects Ellie because they know what she means to Joel. And everybody kind of like treats her like a kid and over protects her. Even though this episode we see throughout this episode she still behaves and acts and makes decisions like a child. So then we go to Joel and Maria speaking, and Joel is like helping out with the logistics of running Jackson, housing and development, infrastructure, and all that shit. Joel's background is carpenting, and he has some experience with engineering, so it makes sense that he's like, he's advising and consulting on this type of thing. Um, One thing that the show, called out very bluntly that the game calls it out, but I don't think it did enough of explaining to, the audience and the gamers who were playing it, is that Jackson is actively letting people in, like, open doors, open borders, and, Joel, initially has, like, an issue with it because they don't have enough housing for everybody, but he's encouraged to be more welcoming, to these people because um Maria reminds him, "Hey, you were a refugee too. We took you in too, right?" So he's reminded of all that, of all those things. Um, Joel is seeing a therapist, right? As I mentioned before, he's in therapy. Oh, by the way, Maria and Tommy have a child. She was pregnant last season. Not something in the game. They didn't have any kids in the game, so they do in this one. Um, Joel is seeing a therapist and he's paying her with poor quality weed. He giving her that Reggie. Damn shame. But I would assume it's hard to find that good shit nowadays. Even though she mentions Eugene. So Joel's therapist is Gail. Her name is Gail, and she is actually Eugene's wife. Eugene, as we know from the game, is a former Firefly that used to run with Tommy and Joel back in their Firefly days. And of course, he has to give her the weed because it's a they don't got no money. It's a barter system they run on in this society. Um, so yeah, Eugene, we learned about him in the game. Not a whole lot of context, just that he was. I think we learned that he was good with explosives, and yeah, he's a former Firefly that Joel and Tommy knew. And we learned that Joel apparently killed Eugene last year, the year before, literally the exact year before that they are speaking, that Joel and Gail are speaking. Now, I'm curious. I'm like, why? So that didn't happen in the game. We don't know how um, Eugene died, but it doesn't seem like Joel's the one who killed him because it seems like Eugene. I may be wrong on this, but I don't think Eugene actually ever made it, or I don't think he was at Jackson during the time of part two, like around that time. I think he died. Didn't he die during his Firefly days? I would have to like double check that, but I think he died during his like Firefly days with Joel and Tommy. And in the show, Joel killed him just the year before. And Gail is expressing that she is still mad at him about that. Um, and I'm curious as to how and why Joel killed him. You would think that, okay, maybe Eugene went out on patrol and got infected, and then Joel shot him or something like that. But why would his wife be? I don't. It wouldn't make sense, especially her as a therapist and a reasonable person, to be mad at Joel for killing him if he got infected. Like if he got infected, bro, he's practically already dead. So if I kill somebody who's infected, I didn't really kill them. The infection killed him. I just sped up the process. So I think it would be unreasonable for her to be mad at Joel in that situation. So maybe it's another way that he died. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll learn. Um, so and Gail calls out Joel because she knows he's not telling the full truth about why Ellie's mad at him, because that's the whole reason like why she's like he's talking to a therapist is because him and Ellie have a tumultuous relationship right now, and you know he's bullshitting her and he can't tell her the full truth about why Ellie's mad at him, because that would be revealing that she's immune to the infection, and he killed all those people. I think people know he killed all those fireflies and shit at the hospital, but he can't reveal all that shit because he's protecting her in his mind. And Joel called himself the good guy, which is funny because this shows like everything is just a matter of perspective. Because there's a lot of people that don't view you as the good guy. This show is all about this. The Last of Us to me is, especially part two, is all about perspective, and I think some people the argument for Last of Us Part 2, that a lot of people think like, "Oh, the game is telling you the lesson that revenge is bad." I never thought that was the lesson of Part 2. I believe the lesson of Part 2 was always about perspective and consequences. What you're doing could be seen as a good thing, and you could see it as a good thing, and you could be a villain to somebody else, and that may come with consequences. I think people who think the point of it was revenge is bad are very short-sighted. It's just about consequences and viewpoints. Um, so next scene, Jesse is briefing Dina, Ellie, and a few other people who are going out on patrol. They find a blood trail, and it leads to the supermarket. This is another part of the game where the infected took down a bear. In the game, I think it was like a moose. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a bear in the game. I think it was a moose, and it being a bear hair, I think, kind of indicates that like these infected are really, really aggressive. Taking moose are really strong. Don't get me wrong, moose are strong, but I think taking down a bear is even more formidable, I guess. Either way, I think they changed the animal. So Ellie and Dina go into the supermarket to clear out the infected, but they're treating this dangerous situation like it's all fun and games. They're like joking around, like, just having fun and shit like that, not taking it serious at all, and they're acting like children, which kind of makes sense because they were born into this. So all of this is kind of normalized to them. Um, and Ellie can die, but she can't get infected anyway, so she has less to worry about than everybody else. So it somewhat makes sense that she's treating this, as a joke. Not as much for Dina, but they're still it's showing that they're still immature and still kids, even though they claim they're adults and act and claim you know, they portray themselves as adults. Y'all are still pretty immature and young. Um, so Ellie, uses the bottle to distract the I think it was a clicker. Pretty sure it was a clicker, which is a nod to the game, of course. And then she grabs it and stabs it. So she stabs it in the same way in animation, straight out of how she kills infected in Last of Us Part One, where she like jumps on its back and like is just stabbing it rapidly and and it's like flailing around because she's so small. So she's like literally killing this thing with the same animation as she did in part 1 of the game because obviously in part 2 of the game, she's taller, bigger in stature. She's not like bulk or anything, but obviously the way she kills the infected changes. But she's still killing infected like a little monkey on somebody's back. So I just found that funny. So she kills that infected. Like I said, I think it was a clicker. Her and Dina link back up. Ellie falls through the roof. They encounter a stalker. Now, so the stalkers are the skittish crackheads in the infected family who avoid direct confrontation and avoid direct contact. They rather, you know, hide and then catch you off guard. And the show is showing that there's evolutions and more types of the infected. And at first, I was like, why is she acting like she hasn't encountered a stalker before? I'm like, oh yeah, because the show was different from the game. In the game, you encountered a you encountered stalkers in the first game, right? Pretty early, I would say, you encounter stalkers. They've never encountered a stalker, even though the evolution is runner, stalker, clicker. So they've encountered runners, uh, clickers, even bloaters, but not a stalker. Um, which is, interesting because you would think they would encounter a stalker since they are much earlier in the evolution, unless in the show they are somewhat changing the evolution, or maybe they're changing the fact that runners are starting to like splinter off and now starting to evolve into stalkers. Don't know. Um, but yeah, she encounters a stalker and she's like thrown off guard by it because um she's never encountered one, and and its behavior is just strange to her because usually they would just run directly at her. Um so she gets ambushed by one. Um she gets bit on her stomach and she kills the stalker, but she obviously has to hide that because nobody can know that she's immune. And Dina meets back up with her. They get back to Jackson and speak to like Jackson's government, this panel of leaders and elders, I guess in charge of the town, and tell them about the encounter. And even all of them were surprised by what they were by what Ellie was telling them. Ellie and Dina was telling them about this stalker because apparently they've never encountered one either. So this may be something that's a new evolution that's starting. Um, she uses the knife to pretty much disguise the teeth marks from the bite to make it just look like it's another scar and cut. Um, so that's something that she obviously has to keep on doing, is hiding the fact, because that's why she gets tattoos and cuts herself and all that shit. Um, so yeah, it's interesting, the changes from the game to the show, noticing all those things. Some some interesting changes, some changes that, oh, that's actually a better change that had happened in the game. So Joel visits Ellie. You know, their relationship isn't great. It's awkward because of their relationship, and he offers to fix the guitar because he wants to do something nice for her. Um, Ellie goes to the town shindig, whatever you want to call this, the shindig, the hoedown, the hootenanny, um, the square dance, whatever they call this event. And we all know this part from the game. Uh, Dina and Ellie dance, they kiss. Dude named Seth comes by and say, "Hey, you carpet munchers, this is a family event, and y'all take that dyke shit somewhere else." And then Joel pushes him. I think he pushes him here in the game. I think pretty sure he punches him right in the face. And then Ellie gets mad because she's an angsty, emotional lesbian teen. And I don't need you defending me and fighting my battles for me, and embarrasses Joel and makes it awkward and shit. You know. Um, and now, as earlier shown, as shown earlier at the beginning of the episode, uh, we see that the roots are actually alive in the piping. Some of it is still alive. And we learned last season the roots are obviously not something that's in the game, but it functions as kind of like a hive mind for the infected. And they will be called to Jackson, and there will be an episode where Jackson has to defend itself from a large horde of infected. Should be a fire episode. I don't know if that's gonna be next episode or in the future, but it's gonna happen eventually. And then the episode ends with Abby and her group looking, in the mountains, looking down, seeing Jackson, and that's where the episode ends. So overall, solid episode. It was fine. Um, I purely watch this show out of just to see certain things. Like, I don't I think most of us who played the game understand that our experience with the game is going to be better than the show, but we just watch this out of like, I, I I don't watch it out of high expectation. I think people who never played the game look at this show with a more positive outlook than us who played the game do, and that's fine as long as you don't take this show too serious and like want it to be this you as long as you've accepted what it is, then the show won't bother you. It's fine. So yeah, it was just a fine episode. It's cool. And I look forward to seeing the next episode and what happens. So yeah, so let me know what y'all think about some of the events that happened in this episode, any changes, if there's anything subtle things that I missed, let me know y'all thoughts on this episode and I'll catch y'all on the next video. All right. I'm out of here. Peace.